You, right now, listening to this video, might be winning a large chunk of silver for free. Two of you, actually, so your chances just doubled. All you have to do is click one button. Subscribe. Once we hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to jump out of an airplane and announce the two winners mid-flight with a GoPro attached to my helmet so you could watch it all unfold. I'm going skydiving in celebration of 100,000 subscribers so you can celebrate winning while I'm literally falling out of the sky, hopefully not to my death. Make sure you don't miss it because this will be a beautifully horrific sight to see.
Connection established.
There are a few things that I want to talk about, really in particular one thing, and it is in regards to a story that came out of Russia, out of a news agency called TASS, and it was an interview with a man named Yuri Ushakov, and he works at the Kremlin and basically came out and confirmed what we already knew, that the BRICS nations plan to develop a new payment system based on blockchain. What's really important to understand is the dynamics of it and what they know. And I want people to really pay attention here, because what he says to me is really, 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 really telling as to why gold and silver and all of the world's commodities are behaving the way that they are. So I'm going to read this to you so that you understand, rather than try and paraphrase it. We can talk about it in a moment. He says, all that leads to adopting a new international currency is that we really don't need to go large scale. BRICS is enough. He said, the idea of the currency is that there will be two baskets. One basket will be of national currencies of all the countries involved in the process, like the SDR, which is the special drawing rights of the International Monetary Fund, by the way, but with more clear and understandable criteria. Okay, so they're going to have a basket of a currency that's based upon local currencies and a basket of commodities. Now, we assume that main commodity will be gold because it is the world's only other tier one reserve asset. And the central banks have been buying it and repatriating it from the Bank of England and the New York Fed like it's going out of style, right? So we understand that, right? Also, he says it should be in a digital form, which means it can be used without the banking system. So it will be at least 10 times cheaper than the present transactions through banks and currency exchanges. And what he's talking about there is the Chinese have CIPS, the CIPS, which is the Cross Interbank Payment System, or Project M-Bridge, which was just utilized for a big trade. It allows these countries to trade, whether it be currencies as they are now or central bank digital currencies outside the SWIFT system. That's what the Project M-Bridge is. And that was devised by or developed by China, United Arab Emirates, and I think Singapore. First of all, he's saying it's going to be a currency that will be digital, that will be traded outside the SWIFT system, and it will be a basket of commodities on one end and a basket of local currencies on the other end. So that's what it is, right? But here's the important part that I want people to understand, okay? It's the most important part of everything. And he says this, the second part of the equation is price. For the moment, price is determined by Western speculation. We produce these commodities, we consume them, but we do not have our own price mechanism, which will balance supply and demand. During the COVID panic, the price for oil fell to nearly zero. Now, he's wrong there. It actually fell to negative $40 a barrel, which is kind of the whole underlying factor here of a commodity exchange that can distort reality through speculation to the point where oil is negative $40 a barrel. And they did that because there was more oil than they had the ability to hold it in any of the refineries or the holding tanks. So you had all of these ships sitting out in the middle of the ocean filled with oil, and there was no place to park it. So it was actually negative 40 a barrel. We'll pay you $40 to take our oil. That's how crazy it is. But anyways, he says, it's impossible to make any strategic planning for economic development if you do not control prices of basic commodities. Price formation with this new currency will get rid of Western exchanges of commodities. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, that the Shanghai Gold Exchange or the Moscow Gold Exchange or the exchange in Dubai will take over for the price setting mechanism of the West. We already know that the LBMA, or excuse me, the LME, the London Metals Exchange, was purchased by the Chinese a few years ago. The LME deals mostly in base metals like copper and zinc and lead and steel. They do something with precious metals, but not a lot. So this is not just about precious metals. China owns the LME, and they have just made a deal to where they are going to start warehousing the metals held and backing the contracts trading on the LME. So Chinese will warehouse the metals in China, backing the contracts that are traded on the London Metals Exchange. You see here that they understand that the West has been suppressing the price of gold and silver, and they understand that, and they are using it to their advantage. They are using it against us until they have bled dry all of the shelves. In fact, they just came out and said that they want to build a new BRICS grain exchange. And they say it's likely to change the face of the world grain market tremendously, because after World War II, the United States wheat and corn exports dominated the markets, but now that's no longer the case. So they don't want to have to sell their wheat and corn where they're selling just or producing just as much or more than the US is, where global prices are primarily determined on the Chicago Commodity Exchange. They want to have a BRICS grain exchange. They are going to have a Moscow Metals Exchange, a Shanghai Gold Exchange, a Dubai Gold Exchange. They are going to set the price for all of the world's commodities. They already own the LME. Do you see the transition here? They are using the suppression of all of the Western prices against us. Now, this is the first you've heard of them acknowledging it. I've always assumed they understood this, that they understood it and are using it to their advantage. It's ninjutsu. You use your jiu-jitsu. You use your opponent's leverage against them. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're using the make-believe Western prices to accumulate all of it and to misdirect the Western public into thinking gold and silver are archaic relics of the past. You should just own cryptocurrency and NVIDIA stock. At the same time, they're draining the exchanges of not just gold and silver, of grains like wheat, soybeans, and corn. You know, there was just a report that came out that the Chinese are cutting corn contracts tremendously, like in half, all the Western contracts. Why? Because Brazil is the second largest exporter of corn in the world, and they are now buying it from Brazil and valuing it, paying for it in yuan. And so what is yuan? Oh yeah, it's convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange immediately. So all of these new dynamics are taking place, and what you are seeing not only is a changing of the guard, where you're going to see the price setting mechanism change, but you're beginning to see contracts change, where the wheat and the corn and the soybeans were all bought by or sold to the world by American farmers. That's now changing, because I think the world is very tired of the fact that the commodity exchanges are priced in dollars, but priced in a way that is suppressive, priced in a way where the commodity exchanges or the futures contracts control the price rather than the underlying commodities. And these are the countries who accumulate them all. These are the countries who produce them all, that consume them all. So once they've accumulated all of the commodities that they can pickpocket at pennies on the dollar, at that point they will stop accepting, because at that point no one is going to sell at the make-believe prices that the West give us. At that point, you will see a transition to places like the Moscow Gold Exchange, to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, to other exchanges across the globe that will fairly price these commodities, and it will signal the end of the ability of the West to have any significance or influence on the pricing of all of these commodities. And the fact that you have these finance ministers in the BRICS Union talking about this is exactly what I assumed, that they know exactly what's going on and they're just going to use it against us. So it's a very big deal for people who are wondering why the prices haven't taken off more than they have. The people accumulating it aren't bitching because they like getting a subsidized price. But once they have all that they will be able to receive before anyone else, when no one else wants to sell at the make-believe prices, you will see a transition to these other exchanges. And that's when the price goes parabolic, just like that. So yeah, I think it's a very, very, very big deal, and something people need to think about when they are asking themselves, why hasn't gold and silver gone up faster than it has? And, you know, look, in the end, I think gold and silver will go higher than anyone thinks possible. But I do want to also make one other point, at least in terms of gold. And you have euphoria in the stock markets, right? With NVIDIA and with cryptocurrencies. And there's no major reporting of gold. And I know this is a silver channel predominantly, but understand that gold and silver have a 90% correlation throughout all of history in their movement, right? So as one goes, so will the other. And look, let's just state facts. The central banks and the major banks have been buying gold and silver at a pace the world's never seen before. So these are the most informed people in the world. Gold's up $350 in the past 6 months, and that's 20% in 6 months. 6 months ago, the price was $18.20. Now it's $21.70 or whatnot. And even with all the manipulation over the last 5 years, gold has risen from $1,275 in March of 2019 to $21.70 or 80 right now. That's roughly a 70% return in the past 5 years. You divide 70 by 5, that's a 14% annualized return. Now, I just want you to know that my entire career, my mentor, Richard Russell, said, if you make 6 or 7% per year, you are a rock star. So here is a pet rock that pays no interest, that everyone says is an archaic relic of the past, that the central banks can't buy fast enough, that's paying a 14% annual return over the last 5 years at a period of time where everyone's bitching that it's not moving up fast enough because it's being manipulated. So I just want people to understand that this is all by design. And the big money is letting it creep up little by little by little by little as they continue to accumulate it, but not fast enough. And once it becomes exposed to the whole system that the Western price is ridiculous because no one wants to sell it. Look, you're already seeing the arbitrage in China with gold up 80 bucks above the Western price, and silver up almost $3 above the COMEX and London price in Shanghai, which is incentivizing the sophisticated traders who can access both markets to buy in Chicago or buy in London and sell and deliver in Shanghai. It will never come back. This is all a process. Understand it for what it is. Do not be upset by the counterintuitive nature of the market. This is by design. And we'll wake up one morning and boom, it will just all have changed without much of a warning. This is your warning. All of our conversations are your warning. And when you see a finance minister in the BRICS say, yeah, they're manipulating the price, we understand that. And at some point, the price will transition to another exchange where we have a vested interest in being open and transparent on what these commodities are really worth. That's when the West will be left in the dust. And I think it's coming. I truly, truly do. And this is at a time when all of the people in the know, like the billionaires, have been dumping stocks almost as diligently as the central banks have been buying gold. This is a period of time where you need to take a step back and see the big picture and not get thrown off the bull because of the volatility and the counterintuitive nature of gold and silver. So I think to me, it's one of the biggest articles I've read in a very, very long time because it acknowledges what I have always thought they understood. And now I know they do, and they're playing us. And at some point, they're going to flip the switch and prices will move from price setting will move from west to east because the West people will just realize it's been exposed as a scam and a fractional scam at that. And I think we're almost getting to that point. It's getting harder and harder and harder to suppress the price of gold and silver when the whole world is buying it, even though the Western media isn't telling us that.